episode of the Water Talks podcast, where water stories, science, and application receive the focus they deserve. I'm your host, Els Vanbeckevoort. Today we're missing Scott, but it's the summer, so here we go. Anyhow, we are delighted to continue our summer series with stories about people in water. And today we have a special guest with us. Cassidy Castor is joining us. Hi, Cassidy. Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I am good. I'm glad that we got a chance to do this. You've been on my list for a while, so I'm very excited to have our conversation today. For our listeners, Cassidy is a facilities manager at Russell Aquatic Swim School, and she's going to share her story a little bit with us today. But perhaps maybe just to get started, Cassidy, can you just give us a short little bio just for our listeners who don't know you?
For sure. So obviously my name is Cassidy and I have worked in aquatics for 18 years now, but has always had a love of the water. I started super young with my parents putting me in swim lessons at our community center in Ajax, where I grew up, at a super young age. And then working my way up, obviously, through my swimming lessons, my lifeguarding awards, life-saving awards. And then when I turned 15, I actually became an instructor, and I've been instructing ever since then and done everything in between, instructing, front desk, supervising, and now managing. Outside of, my aquatics experience, I am a mom of two. So I have a 3-year-old and an 18-month-old. So they keep me on my toes and busy at all times.
No doubt.
I went to school actually originally for teaching, and I ended up liking, kinesiology a little bit better and the way the body moves, and that really is interesting to me. So I switched there, which actually led to me going to school to be a nurse to kind of pursue my passion of helping people. And I learned that my true passion was in aquatics, where I was still able to help people, but in a completely different way, and preventing that injury and, fatalities from happening through education. So that's something I'm really passionate about, and I'm so happy and so lucky and fortunate to be able to do that every single day in what I do at the pool.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting background, right? Because they all kind of help within your current work sphere, and kind of give further depth or further support, I guess, in being able to do your work. Maybe then, like, how did you find yourself in your current position? Like, how did you end up at Russell Aquatics, and what was that journey all about?
Yeah, it truly is a small world. So I went to Brock University for kinesiology, Niagara College for nursing. And when I had decided that I was going to make the full switch to aquatics, I actually got hired as an aquatic supervisor at a swim school in Toronto. So I moved back to Toronto and was working there. Yes. My sister, who actually is also employed now by Russell Aquatics, but at the time she was babysitting Carrie and Christy, who are the sister owners of Russell Aquatics, 3 young at the time children. And she had mentioned in passing that, my sister's in aquatics as well. What a small world. She also works for a private swim school. And when she had told me that, I was a lot less busy than I am now. And so I had emailed Carrie asking if there were any opportunities to teach national lifeguard or standard first aid courses with Russell Aquatics that I could do on the side of my full-time job with the swim school I was at the time.
Yes.
And those conversations kind of led to me finding out that Russell Aquatics was opening their own first standalone facility that we run 7 days a week. Before that, Russell Aquatics story is amazing. So Carrie and Christy started from the backyard. So before that, moving from the backyard and renting different hotels and gym pools. 2018 was when I moved over to Russell Aquatics, and we found out they were opening their own standalone facility. And I actually was hired not into any position because they didn't know at the time what they needed. But one thing about me is that I am very, very persistent. So I just kept emailing Carrie that I wanted a position with them. And the stars aligned, and I've been with Russell Aquatics since March of 2018. And, I wouldn't do anything differently. I love every single day I go to work. And Carrie and Christy are amazing bosses, owners, and friends. And I'm so lucky to get to work with them. But not only them, with my sister, who is our marketing communications director specialist.
Yes.
So, I'm so lucky to be in an environment like that. And,
Sure. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about the team later, but perhaps so, okay, you joined in 2018. Obviously, I've gotten to know you on a personal level, working together, very technical person, but maybe just, I know you kind of you look after a lot of different aspects. So maybe just walk us through like what does a typical day look like for you? And maybe, including all of the commitments that you have before and after work, but what does a typical day look for Cassidy?
Yeah, I mean, so obviously before work, I have my two little munchkins that I have to worry about. So they get taken to daycare first thing in the morning.
Right.
But when I get to the facility, one of my main responsibilities is the water quality. So when I walk into that facility, the first thing I see is the pool. So we making sure that that is like looking pristine. So does the water look clear? I go into the mechanical room. Is everything balanced? Is there any weird, funky stuff going on in that
Yeah,
maintenance room that I need to address?
sure.
But that is my first priority walking into the building because without a nice clean pool and without safe water, we're not able to do what we need to do. So that is one of my main responsibilities, priorities is the maintenance and the overseeing the cleanliness and clarity of the water. But also in the facilities management position, I oversee not only that, but our aquatics managers. So we have three amazing aquatic managers on our team. So I work very closely with them and they oversee all of our staff. And then I
Yes.
also oversee the front desk and customer service as well as like all day-to-day operations. So that looks, it's every day is kind of different. So it's hard to pinpoint a day, but maybe some days is payroll, some days is operations.
Right.
I also had a really big role in writing our program that we currently offer at Russell Aquatics. So just making
Yes.
sure that's on point and it's being taught properly. So yeah, it's kind of, it's jack of
Bit
all
of
trades,
everything.
but it keeps
Yeah.
me on my toes for sure.
No, I can imagine. And like you say, not every, every day probably has something unique or different that you need to respond to, which makes it probably also interesting, but you never know what you're going to get, probably.
Yeah,
Yes?
exactly.
Okay. So we've had the pleasure of having another swim school leader previously, and that's a while ago. That was over Christmas. So for people that didn't hear that episode, so maybe could you tell us a little bit about a swim school because not everybody's familiar yet with what it is. How does it compare to a regular community pool? How does it differ? Like, what's it all about?
Yeah, for sure. I know Tiernan did a great job of explaining when he's on, but in my perspective, I've actually worked for both. So I have worked for municipalities and cities before, and have worked now in the private swim school industry. And I think the biggest difference that you will see is the quality of instruction that you're able to receive. So in teaching at I taught at the city of Whitby for many years. I could
Yes.
have up to 10 kids in one class. And as
Right.
a 16-year-old, in handling 10 4-year-olds, that's crazy. And each kid is not getting the individualized attention that they need.
Right.
No child is the same. So when you're teaching a generalized lesson, I think the private swim school industry is really able to kind of narrow down on what does that individual child need? What are their needs? What are they able to do now? And where do we think we can get them by the end of the session? So in offering smaller ratio classes, that customized approach is really important. I truly do believe that sometimes you'll see the private industry is a little bit more expensive, but you're paying for the quality and you're investing in your child.
Yes.
And you have adults too, so you're investing in yourself. And
Right.
we do everything all the way from, parent and tot 3 months old, we put them in the pool, all the way up to adults. So we do everything in between. And I do really believe that I want to get the word out there, regardless if it's the private industry or anywhere, is that early exposure is so important when it comes to swimming lessons. The earlier you
Yes.
expose your child to water and being safe in and around the water, and the more educated you are as a parent or a caregiver
Right.
to safety aspects around water, the safer
Mm-hmm.
your child's going to be. Like in Ontario, we are surrounded by lakes. We have cottages, we have pools, there's backyard pools. There's so many areas where we're exposed to water, and that importance and that education is so key in every child's upbringing, and every parent should have education on it. And you see so many sad stories, like especially over the summer in the media, about when that doesn't happen and then when that hasn't happened. So, Tiernan has said, he said it actually when we were at the conference in Niagara Falls, is that swimming is just as important as reading and writing. And I truly believe that. And I think, we can hopefully spread the word together that this is something that every child needs to have at least some foundation in self-survival skills.
Yeah. And do you think, obviously, having that, really focused attention in much smaller groups, like that those things really also help progress your skills, your water skills. Like that must really shorten the whole life cycle or the whole journey that you have to take to learn how to swim, right? And the confidence in the water. Like what does that look like from your experience comparatively?
Yeah, 100%. I think that also in our, I can speak to Wrestle Aquatics, is that we will not pass a child to the next level until we know and they have proven that they can master the skills from that level. Sometimes when, other swim schools or like the municipality, because the classes are so big, it's really hard for that one instructor to evaluate all those children on all those skills. And sometimes you see kids actually progress faster, but they don't actually have the skills mastered. So in the private swim school industry, we're really honing in on those skills that are important and
Right.
making sure they have them down pat and have a really good foundation of them before we push them through the levels. And
Yes.
that can leave parents rest assured too that their children are actually learning the skills and going into level and only progressing to the next level until it's safe to do so.
Yeah, no, and that, to me makes perfect sense because I think, having come from a different country originally where swimming lessons were part of the curriculum in, kindergarten, junior school, we went swimming every week with our class forever, right? So year after year after year after year. And it was kind of considered to be as important as any other aspect of gym class. And I think for me at least, I feel very comfortable in the water because I did get that foundation. I learned how to, how to tread water for long,
Yeah.
learn how to swim distances, how to float, how to feel comfortable in the water, which makes such a huge difference when you're in a big lake. I had the pleasure of swimming in Lake Superior this summer, which was just awesome. But it's a big lake, right? Like it's cold and like you need to feel comfortable. So for me, it's kind of a no-brainer that parents, if I was here again with my kiddos when they were little, and unfortunately, there were no swim schools, at least as far as I know, but I did put them into swim camps. I did put them into all of those things, which were great. And one of them is a lifeguard now as well, which is fantastic. But I would have done the same thing if it had been available. I would have been sold right away because I think it's such an important thing as well. So kudos for you guys. I
No,
love
thank
that.
you.
So maybe talk to us about some of the challenges that you've had to contend with. And it doesn't have to be about anything specific, maybe something that, is more common or once in a while it happens both on the programming side or on the maintenance side or however that works. Like, is there anything specific that comes to mind when you think about some of the challenges of your job as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think that people management as a whole is always something that's a little bit challenging. And I think that is across the board in terms of it does not necessarily specific to clients that are coming in the building, but also staffing and
Right.
really having a team that has that solid background of being passionate about what they're doing. And
Yes.
that's a cultural thing too, like where our team culture needs to be solid. We have core values that our team member need to abide by and
Yeah.
represent when they're in the pool because that's representing us.
Right.
So making sure that we are, we always say hire the personality, train the skill. You want to have somebody that's excited to be there and the kids look up to. They're a role model for their kids. So I think that and just making sure that is our team is on the same page. And I think we have a really great solid team that does that. But
Yes.
for a couple years, helping to find more youth because a lot of our staff are younger that have that same passion for a long time was tricky, but I think we're at the place we're at right now is great because a lot of our staff are actually past students of Wrestle Aquatics. So they've grown up.
Really nice.
Some of our managers that I'll speak about a little bit later actually took swimming lessons in Carrie and Christie's backyard over 20 years ago. So, and now
That's
there
cool.
are, aquatic managers, which is great because they have
Yeah.
that passion instilled in them.
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely something that can be challenging, but have been like we're overcoming that very slowly. On the flip side of that, in terms of parents, I would say a lot of parents, especially as things are getting financially more challenging, like putting that swimming on the back burner to other sports and just educating them on why it's so important. Or, we got to this level, we're going to stop because I think they're okay. We actually always encourage all of our swimmers to go all the way up to their bronze levels, which is the program, right
Yeah.
before starting.
Right.
And the reason we do that is just because we want them to be able to self-save themselves, but also to help somebody else in a body of water if they were to ever see somebody like that. So I think that is just so important to education pieces. but we're seeing a trend in terms of, where do we allocate our money? And having two kids, I know how difficult it is to be like, should I pick hockey? Should I pick soccer? Should I pick swimming? So just educating them on that and the importance of that, and obviously understanding too from a parent's perspective that there's other things that are coming as well, but just working with them in those areas, I
Yeah.
think is something that the whole industry is kind of seeing a shift in for sure.
To me, it would be almost like something that government should help subsidize. I mean, that's my perspective on it because I think it's such a critical life-saving skill that it's kind of not optional. Do you know what I mean? Like it should be schools should start to implement and so that would be part of my perspective on this as an advocacy thing, that okay, well, I understand that people are struggling, like it's a tough economic environment right now for sure, but if you're going to choose between hockey and swimming, well, hockey is super important, but the swimming component, it's not really optional. At least from my perspective, it shouldn't be for
No,
kids.
for sure. And I think like I have at conferences spoken with swim schools in Australia, and something they do is that from the get go, from when a baby is born in the hospital, they're giving them information on swimming lessons right away. And I think if we could shift and get that messaging out in a similar way where it's something that, when parents are having new babies in the hospital or they're first time moms and dads, that they're getting that information and why it's so important is something that I've been like in our area. I know I've been really trying to partner with mommy groups, and I've even reach out to Mark and Stouffville Hospital and
Yeah,
trying to
yeah.
get just, some communication, some education across so that we're giving that knowledge at least to new parents, because being a new parent off the get-go is already something hard, but making that decision and that having that education piece in front of you is so much easier, and to make one less thing that you have to Google at nighttime when you're up feeding your baby, I think is going to be life changing if we can get our foot in the door on that one.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good approach to take for sure. Maybe, and those are very valuable kind of challenges that you're trying to meet head on. And I think that that's a good approach to take for both of those in terms of staff and training people up through the system, as well as, making sure that that new children, new members can come and start to learn this essential skill. So I know you have a lot of serious things to look after as well, but are there any what's kind of the favorite thing that you do? Like what do you love about your job maybe the most, or any favorite moments that you can kind of share with us?
For sure. I mean, I think teaching has always been a passion of mine. So even right up until, December, I had my last son in February of 2024. So up until December 2023, I was in the pool teaching. And I love teaching because for me, it's so rewarding to see the kids go from, week 1 to week 14. They're swimming by themselves, or in parenthood, they were crying for the first 3 weeks and now they're having fun in the water. So teaching will always be a passion of mine. So I love getting in the water and doing that, but also being in the water and helping and training, mentoring staff as well, and showing
Yes.
them maybe some different ways they can do things. I don't get to do that as much as I used to. But one thing that I have started doing that I love is programming. So writing, so I wrote the entire Russell Aquatics program, and then like making lesson plans and things like that to make the progressions make sense. And yeah, so I've been doing that. And another, I mean, you'll get firsthand, you get to hear it first here, is that another exciting thing that's happening is actually Carrie and Christy, so the owners of Russell Aquatics, and Davina have come together, and they actually are launching September 2nd a sister company that's called
Wow.
Splash and Learn. So their first location is actually going to be up in Barrie. So opening end of September for lessons. So I got the opportunity to write the program for that location and that company as well.
Super.
So that's something I think that, I love doing. I love seeing how can we puzzle pieces to make it make sense and make the
Yes.
students progress faster, but at the same time, make it make sense for the parents and why are they learning these skills and what's it going to lead up to. So
Yeah,
I got to do that for not only Russell, but for Splash and Learn as well. So that's a
that's
super
cool.
exciting thing that I have been working on.
Well, for sure. I guess maybe that leads into an interesting follow-up question. Like, have you taught your own children how to swim? Are you teaching them how to swim? Are you
So
working with that?
I did do parent and taught lessons with both of them.
Yeah.
My poor second child has the worst second child syndrome ever. So with Hudson, who's my first, I was in the pool with him like every single week religiously up until he turned 2 when we
Yeah.
transitioned him over to the preschool program. And Brooks got like a year of parent time until I went off of mat leave, and he hasn't been in the water as much. But when we go to backyard pools and things like that, I will teach them. But they don't listen to me as well as they listen to their instructors. So I would much rather put them in a pool with an instructor. So both of them will be going by themselves in the fall session at Russell because they do not listen to me.
Oh my gosh, that's very funny. Yeah, I can totally understand that. So then as a working mom, like, are you able to combine all of this? Because I know even when you were off, you were still, I know, you're still engaged. You're still, I don't know what it's like being at home with little kids. It's still good to keep your mind busy and engaged. But how are you able to manage all of that? Because there's a lot of work on your
Yeah, for
plate.
sure. I think really being really intentional with my time. So if I am dedicating myself to taking my son to soccer, then I'm taking him to soccer. If I am at work, then obviously there's parent things that come up, but just really trying to budget out my time. And there's a lot going on at work. But then I need to be present when I'm at home. So just being
Yes.
really intentional with when I'm at work, what am I getting done? I am a religious user of Google Calendars. So my Google Calendar, if you were to look at it, you would think I was a crazy person because it is so color coded.
Yes.
But scheduling myself into doing things, being productive with meeting time so that we're not having a 2-hour meeting for something that could have been like 30 minutes,
Right.
just being really purposeful with what I'm doing when I'm doing it, I think helps me to make a good schedule and having a great support system. So my husband is awesome that when, I need to be, so last night and the night before I was up in Barrie until 10 o'clock, that he knows that like I can rely on him to make sure that he's got the kids, he's good to go. And that
Right.
partnership is so important, especially when, I'm so busy, he's so busy, but
For
working
sure.
together to make sure those kiddos are taken care of and they feel loved and they're getting to all their activities.
Yeah, no, I can totally understand that, and I can see that as well. I've come to appreciate you do have good scheduling and good time management skills, and we need to, right? Like
Yeah.
that's part of the course, so that's very helpful. I know we talked a little bit about it earlier, but like maybe tell us a little bit more about the Russell team because obviously it's been a joy working with you guys. We've gotten to know different people there, but from your perspective, like share it with our listeners. Like what's that crew all about?
So you heard me speak earlier about the owners of Russell Aquatics, but Carrie and Christy are a sister duo that started in their backyard 21 years ago and then have grown the business since then. They are awesome role models. I consider them my friends. I love going to work every day with them, and I love the trust that they've given to our team as well.
Right.
That we are able to operate the swim school the way they would want to operate the swim school. But they are great leaders, and we look up to them so much. And they're also so much fun to work with.
Yes.
So we love them. And then we also have a set of 3 aquatic managers. So Angelina and Phaedra and Nicole, they are rock stars. They run such a tight ship, but like fun and have great relationships with our aquatics team. But they are our aquatic managers, so they are in charge of the aquatics team, the programming, the lessons, all of that. And they do an amazing job with that. I can rely on them so much. And when I'm not there, they're the ones when I was on my mat leave that were doing a lot of the pool maintenance too. So they took on
Yes.
that hat and did, again, a phenomenal job with that.
Right.
And again, I'm so lucky to have them as my trio of aquatic managers.
Yes. Yes.
And then we have also awesome instructors, awesome supervisors, leads as well. And then on our CSR team, we have, a ton of, Kristen is our administrator, and Nikki also works with one of our administrators, Carolyn, our customer service
Yeah. Sure.
specialist. And again, they are awesome with the clients. But one thing you will notice about our team is that we are very, very heavily women based. So
Yes.
our top kind of senior management team is all women, and which can be intimidating at times. But I think that all of our minds coming together is a really great and powerful thing. And we do great things with all of us when we all sit down and, have meetings. We get lots done in those meetings.
Yeah.
Maybe
Right.
get sidetracked a little bit because we like to chit chat, but that's okay. But, so lucky to be on such an amazing team and that they're there to run everything the way that again, Carrie and Christy would have wanted it run.
Right. Their vision,
but they're not there.
it's
So
being executed. Yeah.
If you ever like get a chance to meet, I mean, Els, you've met them before, but if anyone ever gets a chance to meet them, then
Yeah, no,
they're amazing.
Like you guys are a great group. And one of the things I was going to ask, as you mentioned before, that some of the team members actually were getting lessons, or so who was that? You were alluding to that earlier.
So Nicole and Angelina, so two of our aquatic managers, took lessons with Carrie and Christy when they're little. And we have a couple of our instructors as well that have taken them more recent years, actually. Like I actually taught them 8 years ago when I first started. And Kristen, who is our administrator, actually grew up as a neighbor to Carrie and Christy in the backyard. So
wow, cool.
Yeah, we have lots of those personal connections.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, my sister is our communications marketing director. She's actually on a mat leave right now. She had her baby last night. So new auntie, but yeah, so she's normally with us as well. And again, another powerhouse team of sisters there too.
Yeah, no, that sounds excellent. So what did she have, a little baby yesterday?
Yeah, she had a last night at 10 p.m. So her little boy named William.
Oh, well, tell her congratulations.
I will. Thank you.
Yeah, that's just beautiful. Wonderful. I know you've been kind of helping her along the way. And so that's exciting.
Yeah. And she helps me too. On my mat leave, she got to do aquatic things that she's never touched in her life. So, good for her. We're the jack of all trades over there.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. That's excellent. So maybe you mentioned at the beginning, as you were just explaining, your day, what that looks like. And obviously a big portion of your day is making sure that when you get in the morning, that the pool is pristine. Mm-hmm. So, maybe touch on that a little bit more. So how relevant is water quality? And that's how we got to know each other. Obviously, how important is it to your daily experience? Like, what does that mean practically for you?
For sure. I mean, so we put through about 2,800 kids a week in our program. And so in doing that, obviously our pool, we have one pool and it gets a lot of use. So
for sure,
prior to, meeting you guys, our pool was oftentimes cloudy, especially on weekend days when we were there, 14, 15 hours. Super cloudy. We were having to have really high levels of chlorine, and then that was in turn kind of yo-yoing our pH. We were getting a ton of complaints about bathing suits being bleached, eyes, skin, everything that you can get when it comes to a pool. We were walking in the facility, we were smelling chlorine. People were commenting that they could smell chlorine because I'm a little immune to it. I was at that time.
Of course, yeah.
So at the end of the day, we are putting children in that pool and their health and safety is top priority. So we were actually having closures when our chlorine was too high or too low and things like that. So not only are we not able to put them in the pool for a life-saving skill, we're then having to send our staff home. So they don't have work. We're closing, which at the end of the day results in losses and, cost to get that chlorine up or cost to get that chlorine down. So we kind of decided that we need to make a change and there needs to be a better way in which we can get this water clean and healthy and safe and not have to be constantly dumping this in, dumping that in, dumping this in, because I'm also getting phone calls at 10 o'clock at night, from my supervisors saying, hey, Cassidy, the chlorine is sitting at a 0.0. What do I do? So that's when we were super fortunate to find you guys and come in and do an analysis of our water. And we started off just with that handheld unit, and that handheld unit alone made such a huge difference in us being able to accurately pinpoint, where's our chlorine at, where's our pH at. We don't need to add, we don't need to take away. And then when we installed the SPI, it's been a game changer. So that got installed December or October of last year. And the set points on that I have not had to touch ever. Right. And our water is looking 100 times better than it was. Yeah. And that coupled with the installation of a new pump, we have not had one complaint about skin, eyes, chlorine, bleaching, I think probably since last October.
Wow.
And we're impressive. So grateful. It's such a difference maker. And even me getting in the water, I feel such a difference in my skin. Yes. I've seen in my kids' skin getting in the water. So I think that at the end of the day, that clean water is so, so important. And that clear water, it makes a difference. And we're actually getting so many comments, oh, your water looks so good. I saw a difference too when I was on my mat leave. I would come only probably once a month, and I'd come like July to August, I saw such a huge difference. So, having that knowledge and not being fooled by the gimmicky things that people are trying to sell you on either, like when there's
Right.
actual science behind it, it
Good
makes
science
sense.
behind it. Yeah.
And so to me, having all of this in the pool, it makes sense. And that's why we're seeing results. I think.
Knowledge, right? It's like I'd like to say that, you guys are very open to learning and really expanding your skills with respect to operator training, understanding water chemistry, like the basic aspects that are, I mean, I know you've taken a little further than that. And obviously we're going to work with you specifically on some of those more advanced components of water quality management. But, your team was able to embrace this. So I would say it's a team effort. You had some leadership, you have some vision to say, okay, we can do this better.
Mm-hmm.
It did take your leadership and obviously, the Russell leadership team to say, okay, we're gonna make some improvements. But everybody on your crew was able to embrace this in a very positive way. And we, that made it a pleasure also working with you, because it's great to hear, all the improvements. We've seen the improvements. The data are kind of speaking for themselves, because you guys are in a very different place today than you were when we first met you guys.
For sure.
And so, and having also that, that external support from a maintenance perspective, right? Like it's a team effort, having people who you can rely on, who can come and, look after some of the bigger components within your mechanical system. So sure. It is it's all of us together, right?
Yeah, and I think Brian and his team at CD Pools have been like instrumental in helping get that in place for us too. So we're super thankful to them and them coming in, and for them to like, one big thing that for me was a little bit more challenging, I think, in the transition is that in your pool operators, you learn one thing and, we're kind of having to take that knowledge and be like, but is that actually true in this situation? So it's a little bit of like abstract thinking, but when you sit down and you see the graphs and you see the knowledge and the information pieces that you guys give, it makes sense. And so I think there's a little bit of a transition if you are like very stuck in black and white on what this is what I learned in my pool operators. This is what has to be done. This is the only way. Right. And that's not necessarily the case. So being open to maybe there's a different way that isn't necessarily recognized in those pool operators course because they don't have the knowledge to be able to implement it yet.
Yeah. And I think, Sanecotech is very focused on getting some accreditation for all of its materials for continual professional development, because ultimately we can't stand still. We can't continue to do what we've done in the last 30, 40 years, right? We have to progress. And as new water science emerges and as we get more visibility on what's possible, all of these things become very attainable. And I think, obviously, Scott is not with us today, but from a CPO perspective, I know that he has the same perspective that, okay, we need to kind of get it to a higher level of operation. Like it's super important that we don't do the bare minimum, because compliance is the bare minimum, right? So regulatory compliance, you guys were always mostly compliant, I'm sure, but that's not going to get you to where you need to get to from the perspective of, not having to close the pool, not having to do an enormous amount of reactive responses, which cost money and time and effort and energy. And I think, the vision behind all of this, I guess, is that I wish everybody was like the Russell team.
Well, we definitely appreciate that. I think too that like also being in the private industry is that we want to be the best of the best. If, we have parents that are opting to come to a private swim school versus going to a city, right, what is going to set us apart? And one of the things is having that clean water, that having that crystal clear, like you look at it and you can see straight through, like you could see through a glass of water. Yeah. That is going to make such a difference too. And it's part of what sets us apart from other facilities as well.
Absolutely. And, I've had that conversation with Tiernan, of course, as well. The Making Waves crew, they do an outstanding job. So the swim schools that we're working with all seem to be very progressive and willing to kind of operate at a higher level. And the cool thing, I guess, in all of this is that, it shouldn't cost you more money, right? It should actually save time, save energy, save chemicals, save resources. Like that's the whole goal behind it as well. So maybe then practically from your perspective as a very seasoned, experienced facilities manager, like what kind of advice would you give other people like yourself in the industry? Like what would you tell them?
I think the main thing is that do not ever be scared of change, because everything is always changing, and a lot of times it's hard to embrace that change, but the industry is evolving. Things are changing, times are changing, knowledge is changing, equipment, everything is changing. So don't be afraid to embrace that change and be open to doing something different than the way you had been doing it. For a long time, I was like, well, this is how I learned. This is how I wanted to do it. But in listening, especially in being brought into Russell Aquatics where, I'm able to go, I've been invited and given the opportunity to go to conferences like the Canadian Swim School Alliance, like United Swim School Association, and meet other people in the industry and see how they're doing things. And like, that's actually a really great idea. We could change and do it that way. I think being open to change and doing it in a different way, as long as you're getting to the same outcome, it doesn't really matter how you do it. And maybe there's a more effective way to do things. I would say that's a big thing. Make connections as well. So one of my favorite things to do at conference is networking. I love meeting like other industry professionals, learning from them. Maybe they're in the same position, maybe they're in a different position, but getting to know them at conferences, asking them all my questions, and really putting yourself out there and meeting new people. I got a ton of contacts that I've known people in the swim industry for 15 years now, but I was still meeting even this May when we went to the conference in Niagara Falls. I was still meeting. I have like 18 new contacts from the conference that I went to. So I think networking and not being afraid to share knowledge with other people. It's not like we need to keep our cards close to our chest. We're all there to do the same thing. So just making sure that you're open to that, I would say, are big things for sure. And then I think my last thing would be give yourself grace. You're not always going to be perfect all the time, and that's okay. But it's okay to make mistakes, and you're going to learn from those mistakes. So just give yourself grace when you're learning how to do things, or if you're making changes, and know that, there is an opportunity for you to grow and to learn from these situations. And there's always a lesson to be learned. So just be patient with yourself and, embrace that change, embrace that growth. And
I think that's not just good professional advice. I think that's good life advice too, Cassidy. I think so. Yeah, for sure. So maybe, was it helpful also for you to see other places that had implemented some of those progressive changes? So I don't know, was it useful for you, for example, to visit the town of Oakville when you got to see kind of the setup there at the Iroquois Ridge Community Center at the Better Pools Conference? Like, did you find that helpful?
Yeah, I think visiting Oakville's facility was, first of all, like their pool looks like phenomenal. Like it looks amazing. So being able to not only see the mechanical room and seeing like, this is the system they have, this is where their flocculant goes in, this is their air assisted backwash, not only to see that, but to see the effect that it had on the water.
Yes.
I think they have to be kind of hand in hand, because like I could look at an equipment room or a mechanical room and be like, oh, that looks great. But to see the effect that it actually had on the water, I think was so important. And it kind of like, I went to that conference. I was still, I think, technically on mat leave at that time. So I came to that conference. I know. For me, Carrie and Christy, like, we're going to do this new technology. And at first I was like, okay, but like, why? So being able to actually see it and sit and like be able to ask my questions and see it all in action, I think kind of sold me on it, like fully.
Exactly.
So that was super beneficial for sure. And I mean, their mechanical room was beautiful and like everything looked good. And now I understand more why is the flocculant in this point? And why is the air assisted backwash need to be used? Because, it's turning up the bottom. I would have never thought of that, because in my mind, I'm like, my filter should be doing that already, but it's not.
Yeah, I know. And we're so excited to help you guys get that implemented. Like, I know you've got much better clarity, but that small change is going to make another significant milestone for you guys, which means the chlorine has to do a lot less. Like, that's the whole purpose in all of this, is that we use the right tool for the right thing, so that, it's going to be the most efficient and effective system, right, for you guys to be able to operate that as well.
Yeah.
So, and then, we can have Russell as a place where we can bring people. I mean, we already can actually. So I think to me, it has, it doesn't matter what we say. It matters what we can make work in the real world. And we can demonstrate it very specifically through good data and practical visual ways, like you just said, that says, okay, my water looks very different today than the way that it used to look. And that, that to me is kind of the way that we have to approach this. It has to be very hands-on, very, very evident, not smoke and mirrors, but really very specific as well. And I think you guys do an outstanding job in facilitating that too. Anyway, like I think we could talk for a while longer for sure. But I am mindful of the fact that we're almost kind of at the end of our conversation here. But I wanted to ask you a little bit about the new school year, both professionally and personally. Like, we're now coming to the end of summer. What's that look like for you guys? Because I'm sure it's going to get probably pretty busy.
Yeah, I mean, I think the end of any session is always crazy because you're wrapping up old students and bringing in new students. So for us, we actually do, the week after Labor Day, we shut down for that week to kind of touch up the facility and things like that.
Right.
But moving pieces wise, there is a lot of like wrap up from the new session and then checking levels and making sure all the students are in the right classes and getting ready for that. Our admin team is working super hard on that right now, this week and next week. We also take that time to train our staff. So we do quarterly training. So the next 2 weeks, we have a bunch of training for our team to just make sure that, any of the issues or areas where they needed more support, we're allowing them to have some training sessions on that. Any changes that we have coming, they're getting updated on that for sure. So we just updated our parent and taught program. So they're going to have a big new training on our parent and taught program for the fall. So that's kind of what that's looking like for us right now. And then, we are getting ready our fall session starts on September 6th. And we have 2,800 students registered, ready to go. So again, we're so fortunate that we have so many students that are excited to learn and grow with us. So that's awesome.
Yes.
I mean, my little one is starting JK in September too. So I'm, or my oldest, is starting JK. So he is September 2nd going to junior kindergarten. So I get to combat that in the next 2 weeks too.
I know, but I'm sure he'll do well. I'm
yes,
sure it'll be no
he is a very sociable one, so I'm sure he'll
Wonderful.
love it.
Well, it's been a real pleasure. I knew it would be a fascinating, interesting conversation chatting with you. So I really appreciate your sharing your story a little bit with us, the story of Russell Aquatics a little bit with us as well, some of your best practices, and obviously your openness to learning. I think that that's the message and the takeaway for all operators that are listening, is to say, okay, embrace change, good change, not for the sake of change, but for the sake of actually getting better outcomes and hopefully, have a more pleasant and wonderful environment to work in as well, right, for everybody who's there. So
thank you so much for inviting me on. It's always a pleasure talking to you. But
yeah, no, I'm the one who's very thankful. I want to say enjoy the last couple of weeks before school starts with your family, at work. Say hi to everybody over there. We look forward to seeing each other again soon. And so thank you so much, Cassidy, for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
And we'll see you super soon.
Yes, indeed. And then for our audience, thank you so much for joining us as well, listening to this fun, informative talk. You can listen to this episode and many others by subscribing to our YouTube channel or connecting with us on Apple Podcast or Spotify or anywhere that you listen to your podcast. If you have questions for Cassidy or for Russell or about this episode, please don't hesitate to reach out, or future topics that you have ideas for. You can email us at mywatertalks@senecotech.com. Thank you all so very much. We look forward to seeing you in September. Have a great rest of your day.